Welcome to Wicked Lies, a podcast of how truth was destroyed by lies. Caution: podcast contains real people who were destroyed by wicked lies. For mature audiences only.
Want to thank all of you guys for being here, right? I don't know if you're here because you were falsely accused, if you're here because you know somebody who was falsely accused, or if you just want to learn more about false accusations. We are so happy that you're here because we need to raise our voices. We need to shine our lights brighter on everything that's happening out there. I mean, it is completely not at all what we were taught in school. Our justice system is not good. It's not perfect. It is very much broken. And these false accusations end up going through the system and ending up in wrongful convictions, sending our innocent loved ones to prison, right? Devastating their lives and our lives as well. So thank you so much. There's so many wicked lies out there, and false accusations is what we're focusing on. When my son was falsely accused of sexual assault, we thought it was so ridiculous. We thought, we've got all the evidence. You know, the neighbors was having a party. He met this girl, and she invited him to spend the night. There were so many people there, and they saw them leave together. And the next day, she drove him home. And because of her past, she was concerned about many things, but decided to turn it into a false accusation of sexual assault. When we went to court, we were so sure that the truth was going to win. We thought, we've got all of this. We know he's going to win. And we were devastated when the jury read the verdict guilty. I cried. I cried on the bench. I could not get up. I just felt like, oh my God, my world has just been totally destroyed. They buried a lot of the evidence. We know the accuser did not tell the truth, and we know the prosecutor was maliciously trying to prosecute my son. We are currently in post-conviction. We're in the evidentiary hearing. We have found new evidence, and I can't unfortunately talk about that right at this time because we have his evidentiary hearing coming up, but new evidence that proves he's innocent, proves he's innocent. 7 years for a crime he didn't commit. I tell you, the day that we found the verdict, and I cried. I broke down on the bench. And it was a few days before Christmas. And you know, I need someone to help me. I can't celebrate Christmas. I searched hard for people out there. You know, my son can't be the only one going through this. It took me a lot. You know, you search false accusations and you get all of this, oh, me too, it's a myth, right? It's far from a myth. I'm using a little laughter here to get myself out of this. It's kind of my coping mechanism right now. But I did find a men's rights organization that was fighting for men, and I met quite a few good people through that organization. It just wasn't quite right because I knew women were being falsely accused too. Women were being sent to prison wrongfully too. So we decided then that, okay, we're going to start our own organization. We're going to be advocates for the falsely accused. I mean, I know how down and desperate I was. I mean, I felt like I was being buried alive. Just seeing that little tiny glimmer of light out there. My son was, my husband was, we were falsely accused. Just seeing those tiny glimmers of light gave me that energy to get up and fight, right? And because I've been fighting, I've been finding more evidence for my son to get him free. But that's how we formed advocates for the falsely accused, right? We need to be the light. We need to be out here letting people know, hey, you're not alone. You know, life needs you. We need you. We're going to fight this together. So I'm so thankful for my very, very good friends that have joined us in the organization, and for all of you watching and listening. I really appreciate you joining us. So what we want to do is kind of introduce other members of our group, let you know who we are and where we're coming from. And I'd like to start with our Vice President of Advocates for the Falsely Accused, Dawn. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can kind of give us a little bit of your background.
Thank you, Lori. Well, like Lori, I also have a family member who was wrongly convicted. Of course, it started off with a false accusation, and that was my husband. He was convicted of sex assault on a minor, and it was a minor of an ex-girlfriend who, long story short, actually is a family member. It's a very long story, but needless to say, prior to his indictment, the minor was caught with her stepfather's best friend. Prosecutor knew about it, but did not bring it forward. What he did was he basically used the story with the best friend and put my husband's name in the mix. Fast forward a little bit quicker, come to trial. The prosecutor also knew about her stepfather, who was actually sexually involved with her, and did not bring that forward. Instead, what he did was he misled the jury by, one, telling the witnesses, when I ask you questions relative to the sex assault, stick with at the time of you coming forward and bringing this of what you knew then, not what you found out after the fact, not what the reality was and who it really was, but stick with at that time. And that has rung through the entire trial, was everything was at that time. Did this happen at that time? So he was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. A 10-year military career ripped away. He was doing fabulous in the military. And we'll fast forward a little bit quicker, because we have actually gone through the entire process from the false accusation to the conviction to the exoneration to what we're going through right now. And so in 2005, we found the Hawaii Innocence Project, who actually took his case. So for the first 2 years, I was doing multiple consultations with attorneys, just trying to find somebody to say, yes, you have a case. Yes, you have, just for something to show us that we have a hope. I'm trying to see this light. I'm not seeing it right now. Fortunately, in 2005, the Hawaii Innocence Project took his case, and they had worked on it since then. In working with them, I was able to get the witnesses to come forward and tell the truth. They admitted that they lied. We found out about, we knew about the best friend who, mind you, 5 weeks after my husband was convicted, parental rights were signed over for her to marry this man. She was 16, he was 29. And so in 2009, the Innocence Project hired well-known polygrapher Jack Tremarco, and may he rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago, but he did the polygraph on both my husband and on the complainant. And in a polygraph, +4 is indicative of the truth. -4 is complete deception. He had a +10, showing that he was being completely truthful in everything that was asked. She had a -8, showing that she was lying. Well, in her interview, this is when we found out, this is in 2009. We did not know about the stepfather until this point, but in 2009, when he did the interview, he asked her a question, and her whole demeanor changed. And when her demeanor changed, he caught it to where he was like, and we're talking about who now? And she says, we're talking about Nate, okay? Well, Nate was her stepfather. So now we come to find out that he had actually been molesting her and sexually active with her since she was like 10. And so fast forward again, it took 16 years to get his name cleared and to get him exonerated. He did 8 years in prison. He did 8 years on parole. And let's see, we got the exoneration in December. Mind you, they were still trying to chase her down because they're trying to get her, the complainant, to come to try to continue pursuing this. But fortunately, the judge could see that this was just a mess. It was not right. And what she did was she did the vacated the sentence with prejudice, so they cannot bring it back. So that was on December 3rd of 2019, but they did have 30 days to appeal it. So January of 2020, he was officially exonerated. Problem with that is, although he was exonerated, in the state of Hawaii, they have a compensation thing now. But what they do is they make it to where it is damn near impossible for anybody to get it. You have to be officially stated as innocent in order to get that. So now we're trying to fight that because we've now been post conviction, post exoneration, and we're fighting to get back at least some of what he lost by way of a lawsuit. The compensation, we're fighting, they're trying to push it through on a higher level with the legislature. But as far as like a settlement with the state right now, I can't get into all the details of it, but needless to say, we are still fighting the state to do the right thing because they are going to just keep pushing to try not to have to clear what they did wrong. And so that's the stages that we're in right now. And it is infuriating. And it just to know, and like for us, it's not so much about the money that he should be compensated. It's about the justice that should be done. Like, this is not just for him. This is for those that happened before him and those that happened after him. And that's why we're pushing as hard as we do. That's why we advocate and we try to do everything we can. And that's why I joined AFFA. I actually joined with Lori prior to that in the men's group that she talked about with the women's side. And then just it same thing. It felt good, but at the same time, it's like something was still missing. We were still not getting something that we needed. We're not reaching the people that we need to reach to help continue this fight. And so that's why I'm here. And I'm so thankful to be here. And I'm thankful for all of you that have joined us. And I'll pass it back to you, Lori.
Thank you so much for being with us, Dawn, and God bless you for this fight. It's a long fight. I mean, some people have been falsely accused and thank God it doesn't go to the court system, but that is still with you for the rest of your life. You know, you go through the exoneration process, this is still with you the rest of your life, right? So thank you. You and Ronis have been very, very strong and I know fighting hard. The other person I'd like to present is Dawn Wolfson. She's our secretary for Advocates for the Falsely Accused. So Dawn, if you could share just a bit of your story with us.
Hi. Yeah, before this whole mess started, I was already an activist, so I was involved in some anti-corruption stuff and some other things. But in 2019, I was at work when I got a text from my son that the sheriff had been at the school to question him. And, oh, we'll talk about it after school. I'm like, excuse me, no, call me. He's like, no, we'll talk about it after school. I'm looking at the clock. It's his lunchtime. I call him. What the hell is going on? This girl that he'd hooked up with a couple weeks prior, because this was like the second day of school, senior year, this girl that he met over the summer through a mutual friend was accusing him of rape. And my son has a disability. He's like a really quiet, gentle person, and I just couldn't believe it. And probably we did everything wrong. Well, he did everything wrong too. He didn't tell us until the police came to question him, right? He'd already at that point been picked up on a pretext call, and he tried to get in touch with the girl and find out what this is all about. And so, they had all this stuff on him already before I even knew this was happening. Well, a couple of months later, he got arrested, and I was there because basically I turned him in. Um, I mean, I was just shaking and I'm like the most rational, logical, calm person on the planet, and I couldn't function. And we're trying to figure out where he is, and they told us a bunch of lies and all this stuff. But we get there and we figure out how to bail him out and everything, and get him an attorney. Well, then we get the discovery, and there's all this stuff that comes flying at you. Like the girl was for example, claiming that she was completely unconscious, right? I was asleep and I woke up and he was raping me, and he's like, hell no, this was all her idea. She told me what to do and all this stuff. And we're hearing from her family, there's a cousin who's saying the girl's a liar, and her mom saying the girl's a liar. But none of that made it into the police report. Of course, that all came later. But there was a witness who was literally an eyewitness. Couldn't track him down. He wouldn't talk to the police. There were people who lied to the police because she asked them to. Couldn't track him down. It's like these people are into drugs or something, because they were changing jobs every 5 minutes, changing phone numbers. And then we go into COVID, and you can't have supporters go into court during COVID because they've got like out of every three seats taped off. So, so you're social distancing. And sometimes even the parents weren't allowed in on a crowded day. And we had a district attorney who wasn't offering a deal, nothing. He was acting like he had a slam dunk case. And it was literally going to jury selection. And two people went into that courthouse and put on their questionnaire. Well, I think I was exposed to COVID. So the judge shut the whole thing down. And so it got pushed and it got pushed and it got pushed. And then the district attorney left. Thank God, because this guy was just absolutely unethical. He had a Brady violation up where he had come from. And I saw him, doing stuff in court, and he threatened our attorney with going after one of our witnesses and all this stuff. So thank God he was gone. The person who took over had a reputation for being ethical. We had to get her all the discovery all over again because the guy didn't give it to her. But and everything takes so forever. Have you noticed that? It was 9 more months after this other district attorney left, and we tracked down all of the elusive witnesses. The two people who had lied recanted. The eyewitness said, oh no, she was awake. And the district attorney dropped charges without prejudice. So, we still have it hanging over our head that theoretically it could be brought back. But at least, and when the attorney told us that, I screamed into the poor man's ear. I think he's deaf now. But so it wasn't too long after that I met this guy who was with the men's group, who, he had a false accusation in his background as well. And he got me involved with Lori's women's group, and here I am. And it's a huge cause for me. I'm here for the long haul. I want to see the laws get better and the courts get better, and what happens afterwards get better, and what happens in prison get better, and raise awareness, and just whatever I can do, because it's just a much huger problem than I ever had any idea until this happened to my own family.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Don. And you're right. I mean, these feelings, this feeling like your hands are cut off and you can't do anything to help someone that you love, is just the worst feeling in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to introduce another man that I met last year. Has an amazing film and production. Very, very excited to introduce Orion Monroe to the group. Orion, if you'd like to talk a little bit about your story.
I think I can. I want to apologize ahead of time. I don't know if it's me or the problem that keeps freezing. So when it's freezing, I mean, it's going to sound like and I work
Maybe
in
if
the
you
field
go
of
off
forensic
camera,
psychology. And
your
what I
your
do for
your
work
your audio's real garbled.
is it better or is it still garbled?
Better.
Okay. And so I'll try to keep it short then. And what I've been involved with for the past several decades is looking at legislation, looking at gender inequality, looking at the benefits to the accuser of false accusations, and trying to understand when doing psychological evaluations for the courts, motivations and history, and kind of laying things out. It's pretty complex, a lot of study, a lot of research, a lot of things. I'm currently not very active on the board presently because I'm working on a project. It's a film in process that is looking at the impact of false accusations and how it can tear a family apart. And that's fun too. When Don said everything's slow, everything is slow. It's very, very slow. But I'm really excited to be part of the group and hoping that we can make some progress into getting a little bit more out there, having people understand that this is not a small problem globally, and it's not just a USA problem. It's not a small global. It's not a small global problem. This is a really, really, really big problem. And so, to keep from garbling, I'll stop speaking. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that you're here. And you'll hear I have a much bigger mouth later. Right now, I'm hiding under rocks trying to get some background stuff done for a film. So I'm pretty much out of commission most of the time. However, I'm happy to just actually be here, as I said, and I'm going to mute myself and throw it.
Thank you so much, Ori. I know it's kind of frustrating when we have technology issues, but yeah, thank you. And we are so totally supportive of you and your film, and we understand all the work that you're doing on that. Totally appreciate it. Something that desperately needs to be shown in the USA and in fact globally. Sexual assault is very difficult for an innocent man to prove, and it shouldn't have to be that way. It should be innocent until proven guilty. And even when they're convicted, I still say that's not enough guilt. It's not enough evidence, sorry. As we found in our case, the prosecutor has buried evidence. But again, I can't go too deep into detail on that. We are having an evidentiary hearing on that. Hopefully soon I'll be able to give you guys some good news. Next person I want to introduce is another gentleman that came to join us, and that's Matt. Matt, do you want to spend a few moments introducing yourself?
Absolutely. So my name was Matt DiMuccio, and I was falsely accused of sexually assaulting a student in front of a class in 2019 during my professional role as an elementary general music teacher. And she alleged this took place in 2018. My arrest was made into a media spectacle, and my name was even released and published in local papers as soon as I was put out on administrative leave in May 2019 prior to any formal investigation. You can feel free to Google my name to see the reporting for yourself. The prosecution alleged I invented an activity to touch children when in fact the activity is part of a major curriculum that is authoritative in the teaching of teachers. School even paid and approved for me to take a summer course to learn said curriculum. So several other ridiculous claims were voiced, such as that I had a cooler of beer in my classroom closet when I'm not even a drinker. The case truly fell apart when the best friend of the complaining witness, who claimed to have seen the alleged assault, came forward to say she lied about seeing an assault and wasn't even in the same class that year. The prosecution dismissed all charges nol prost in October of 2021 after nearly 2.5 years. The case has since been sealed by the courts, meaning I can legally say I was never charged with a crime and all background checks are clean. After 4 years of administrative leave, the school district proposed I come back to work as a high school music teacher in June of 2023, but I declined for multiple reasons and decided to instead resign from my position in the profession altogether. I've since forged a different career path. And just to provide some insight into the severity of this entire situation, I was initially told if the case moved to Superior Court, I could face up to 10 years in state prison. If convicted in district court, I could face up to 2.5 years in a house of correction. And if convicted either way, I'd be put on the sex offender registry, which is a de facto life sentence. I was told in no uncertain terms that if I was put on the registry, I would never work in the state of Massachusetts unless self-employed. And there would also be limitations on where I could live and so on. Well, Unfortunately, despite the dismissal and seal, right, American citizens do not have the right to be forgotten like citizens in the European Union. So the only information online about my case, at least if you Google it, are the allegations and arraignment. I have since put up a public Facebook post under my old name detailing what happened, along with images of facts, but that's it. No press. To this day, actually, advertisement revenue is generated for media sites and search engines every time someone clicks on or looks for the posted articles and videos. I put out a professional press release at the beginning of September 2023, along with targeted emails and personal phone calls. Even had some people on the phone, and still, no media enterprise ever reported on the resolution of the case. So if you Google it, you don't see that the case was dismissed. All you see is me in chains and so on and so forth. It's also worth mentioning that every person, institution responsible for damaging me has some kind of immunity protecting them from most claims. Students are minors, the press have well-established protections, the police have qualified immunity. And the one that I learned is that all government institutions, as well as the people working therein, have sovereign immunity. For people who are unfamiliar, sovereign immunity is an English common law premise that asserts a citizen cannot sue the government unless the government consents. The shorthand for this, the old aphorism, is the king can do no wrong. Um, of course, we can't have any governments where you have representatives sued every time they make a decision. But if you're on the wrong side of the government, if they're negligent or if they're incompetent in some way, you can get totally run over, and there's very little recourse. And then, yep. So, anyways, that all happened. Put out the press release. No one picked it up. So I went forward and in service of nullifying the severe reputational damage incurred, I certified a legal name change to the courts. So my name is no longer Matt DiMuccio. And obviously, it's very well protected, and I only provide my new name on a need-to-know basis for obvious reasons. Um, Take note, I'm only putting out information provable by beyond all doubt. And of course, there's more to the story. But I can really just leave it at that. And really, I'm one of the lucky ones, like, I mean, that whole thing was a living hell. And it did take 5 years, right? Half a decade for it to fully resolve. I didn't truly feel free until finally I changed my name, right? Um, so that's a long time, but I would love to see, at least within just public schools or just schools in general, any kind of position where you're working in service of others, people who are in vulnerable populations, kids, older adults. I think there should definitely just be a pilot program where you can put together close surveillance within a school and have parents opt in, and that to me would be just a really great way to back everyone up and ensure the safety of all people within a school, from student to teacher to administrator to paraprofessional and so on. The other thing I would love to see is just a look at the new technology we have and our how our press is run, and have some sort of legislation that links up to something like the European Union's right to be forgotten. I understand that in the United States, First Amendment, yes. So they could, instead of maybe deleting articles, they could de-index them, which means that you have to search for the exact URL, because having to go to the point of changing your name can get just absurd. That was my identity, and yeah, I've had to grieve over that. But like I said, I'm one of the lucky ones. The reason I'm here is because I feel compelled to pay my good blessings forward, and I just hope that over time the technology and the legal elements change to be more supportive of the general population, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. That took a lot of courage to come forward and share this. And, nobody wants to say, man, I had to change my name because of this mess, right? But this is happening, and some people aren't that lucky. They're not able to change their name, or they choose a different route to where they just end life altogether. right? And this is what we're trying to prevent, right? We need to be able to restore the reputations of our falsely accused, right? With digital and technology today, it's there forever. There's got to be a law that allows us to get our lives back after this. So thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing. Another person I want to share is Julie. She just recently joined us. Julie, if you'd like to give us a quick, brief intro, we'd love to hear from you.
Am I talking? Okay. Um, so if we don't have enough time, it's okay because we're at that half-hour mark. So it's all right if there isn't enough time. I
You're
don't
okay.
I don't have to.
You're okay, Julie. You've got a
Okay.
couple minutes. You're good.
So I was married for 20 years. My husband was in the military and we had 5 kids. And then we went through a really bad 2-year divorce. And at the end of our 2-year divorce, really only our 3 youngest were minors. And we only have one son and he's right in the middle. And he was living with his father, but we had joint custody of all 3 of the youngest, and my 2 youngest daughters lived with me, but they would go to their dad's house, and my son was living with his father, and then he would come to visit me. And but just after our divorce was finalized, he up and moved with our 3 oldest kids 3,000 miles away to California without any notice to anybody, and left my 2 youngest and I in Maine. And he quit his job and he moved in with his mom. And it was almost 7 months before we went to court, and he was found in contempt of court. But of course, he had my son in California and my 2 oldest daughters. Anyways, so I raised my 2 youngest daughters here in Maine, and every summer they would go to California to visit their dad for the summer. But I wouldn't see my 3 older kids. And then in 2019, my next youngest daughter graduated from high school, and they gave her a one-way ticket to California, and she went. And within a year, she was no longer talking to me, and they changed her phone number. And then 2 years later, my youngest, who is autistic, graduated from high school. And she never really had a relationship with her father. And being autistic, and he yelled a lot and was very abusive. And she did not want to go to California or anything. And then right before she graduated, she told me that they were giving her a one-way ticket to California and she didn't want to go. And so, but she didn't know what to do. And then she showed me the text messages, and they were very hateful to me, and saying that I was evil, and that don't worry, after she graduated from high school, they would come and get me and get her and take her to California. And she didn't know what to do. And so she had a caseworker that was working with her. And then when she graduated from high school, and he felt that I should get guardianship of her for a couple of years after she graduated, to help her get settled and get schooling after graduation and job training and stuff, and help her to build her confidence and feel more secure in telling her siblings and her father, how she felt and everything. And so then um so then I had married the year before And unbeknownst to me, um, he was not a very good man. And I thought that he loved my daughter, and my daughter really wanted a father. And then so I was going for guardianship of her, but it was going to be like months before I got guardianship of her after her graduation. And they all showed up for her graduation, but I never saw them. They hid and everything. And after graduation, they kidnapped her out of the graduation parking lot, and the police were involved in everything. And she got back to me okay. And then right before Christmas of that year, um, her stepfather left and took her with him, and he left her at people's houses that I thought were my friends, and told them to get guardianship of her, that she wasn't safe with me, that I was crazy. And he convinced her that too, and she was scared. And right after Christmas, they her and these people and the caseworker, and they filed charges against me for abuse. And so Adult Protective Services did an investigation, and I couldn't have any contact with her or anything. And she kept telling her best friend that she wanted to come home, and he saved all those text messages, thank God. And I had an attorney, and Adult Protective Services did a full investigation, and they found that I hadn't done any of what they had claimed I had done. And so then after they turned in their report and said that there was no evidence of abuse, then they had my daughter go and put in a protection from abuse against me order. And so then I was harassed by the police here, and I couldn't see her. And these people had filed for guardianship of her. So then we went to court in April, May, and June. It was 4 days of hearing and everything and testimony. And they strung it out over 3 months. And the judge did not make his decision until June of 2023, that there was no evidence that I ever abused her or caused anything, and decided that she didn't need a guardianship. And then within a month of that decision, my daughter disappeared. And I know that she went back with her father and her sisters, but I don't know where she is today or anything. But the thing is that I don't, even though, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Like, I couldn't even have any contact with my daughter. Even on the witness stand, when she testified that she didn't even understand why I didn't send her birthday presents or Christmas presents or anything like that. She didn't understand, what was going on or anything. And so still today, like, now I have my house up for sale here in Maine, and I'm moving. I lost all of my friends. Nobody talks to me around here anymore. The police department harassed me for months because of, the protection order and everything. And they believed that I must have done it. And even going into the grocery store, like, if I see any of my daughter's old friends or anything, they don't talk to me. They walk away. And it's really devastating. And people believe, you know, people believe what they hear instead of what the truth is. Like, there was never any evidence. She was in Girl Scouts and dancing and piano lessons and all kinds of things when she was in school. And no teachers ever saw any abuse or anything. And yet somebody can make an accusation like that and it can destroy your life.
Absolutely, Julie. I know this is so painful, and I really appreciate you, sharing this. The world has to see this pain, this devastation that these wicked lies are causing us. They have to know that, hey, we're a culture. We love justice. We love truth. We love family. But this culture has to know that there are wicked lies out there that are destroying innocent people, right? So, in wrapping this up, I just want to thank all of you guys for joining us. Stay tuned, share this, help others be the light, help others know that we're here. We don't want anyone ever to feel alone. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for listening to Wicked Lies. If you would like to learn more about advocates for the falsely accused, join us at www.theaffa.org. That's www.theaffa.org.